Is this going out on your channel or Labour Social?
No, it's Labour Social. Right, we should be live now. Are we
Oh,
actually?
thank God
Were
for
we
that.
not live before? Right,
I
okay.
don't think we were.
This is weird. Right, I'll just explain for people who've now wondering what's going on. So this is the third time we've tried to start this stream. The first time, Graham
God.
tried to start it on a potato. That didn't work. So we thought, right, we'll do it on my computer. And so I did it in exactly the same way as always works. When I'm streaming on my own channel, I start streaming and then there's a button that says go live and I click it and I go live.
Right.
Whenever I stream on Labour Social, when I do the morning brews, that never happens. Whenever I click, right, let's stream now, it just randomly starts streaming. I have no control over it. When it's ready, it just starts streaming. I have no button to press. So I assumed the same thing would happen. And there was the button. There was the button.
Oh my God.
So we are now live.
Yeah.
Apparently. Can someone just confirm that? Actually, someone's referred to me being a hippie just because I've put a field of red roses for Labour in the background.
Is that what the roses are for?
As a quick image to stick there. And we've got a super chat as well. Brad £2 super chat. Phil's launched a coup.
Thank you, Brad. Hello and welcome to the agenda on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes and I'm joined by Phil Morehouse, as always. Sorry, as you can possibly see, I've got very, very dodgy internet here in the Lake District. There's lots of lakes full of poo, apparently, according to everyone who monitors these things.
Yeah.
But what we want to talk about today is not the lack of internet in the lakes. It is about what's on the front cover of most of the newspapers today, which is that Rishi Sunak has now decided to go after Sick Note Britain. So people who are long-term unemployed because of illness, you know, like disabled people. And apparently, if you don't go back to work, they're going to stop your benefits coming through, which means that there'll be a lot of people, I guess, living on the streets because they're not going to be able to afford their rent or food or to keep warm. I mean, Phil, is this a dream? Is this a horrible
it's the age-old Tory
nightmare, or is this real?
It's the age-old Tory con. Rishi Sunak today in his speech was going, this is all costing too much. Basically, they can't balance their budget. They can give away all these tax cuts that no one needs or can make use of. And but oh no, we can't balance our budget. And so they attack people on benefits, even though the majority of people on, it's specifically on out of work benefits. And he's attacked doctors. Why you say they're ill? Like, because they're ill. And, you know, Rishi Sunak, I was just saying before, you know, when we thought we were streaming. Yeah. Rishi Sunak has tried to say, oh, I'm not saying there's no such thing as mental illness. That's what he said this morning. It's like, no, that's exactly what you're saying. Because, like, all of us have known people who've been ill, a variety of illnesses. You get to a certain point in life, of course, you've known lots of people who were ill. And, you know, you'll know people who've had injuries, like broken bones or serious cuts. You go to the hospital. People who've got illnesses, an infection. I had an infection a couple of weeks ago, go to the doctor, get antibiotics. All that's normal. No one bats an eyelid. But I've also known lots of people with depression, severe depression, right? Do you know what I've never known? I've never known anyone get treatment on the NHS for it. I've known people who've gone to the doctor with depression and it's accepted they've got depression. I have never known anyone who was given anything by the GP other than tablets, which in many cases have made it worse. I've never known anyone get actual therapy for a mental health illness. Now, it does exist. So there is some provision on the NHS. But I have never seen it in practice. So in actual fact, no. If you're talking about mental illness, and Rishi Sunak brought that up, then no, there isn't the support there available for people. It doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, I do know people who have had cognitive behavioural therapy, but the waiting lists for these things are crazy, and people end up going private if they can afford it. Again, with the two-tier system that we have for everything, Phil, whether it's traveling and living around Europe or whether it's seeing a GP or getting gender-affirming care, it is one reality for the rich and another for the rest of us, having to wait up to 3 years just for a diagnosis of ADHD. And even if it's diagnosed now, you can't get the medicine because of Brexit. along with medicine for diabetes and epilepsy, which, you know, these are serious afflictions. And the fact that the Tories have set things up to make life in Britain as sick as possible. I was talking about this morning. There's a thing called sick building syndrome, where you make a building and it doesn't have enough light, it doesn't have enough airflow, the ceilings are too low, and it makes the people who live there ill. We've got that, but on a countrywide scale. All of our watercourses are filled with shit. Like, you know, we open the newspapers each day, and it's just a deluge of terrible news, of Tory sleaze, of the rich getting away with just horrific crimes against us and against humanity, and just getting away with it every day. And I can see why there is such a mental health crisis at the moment.
Is when
this is not the way to address it.
No, when you've got people as well who are struggling to be able to maintain a standard of living, they're, you know, when they're worried about how they're going to pay basic bills, that creates stress as well, and that inevitably, like physical stress, will eventually cause you to become ill.
They find that with economic downturns, with recessions and depressions, it leads to actual mental health problems. Because the one thing that people freak out the most about in general, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of relationships break down, it's financial. It's something to do with money somewhere along the line. And it's a massive issue. Talking of money, we've had some super chats come in, Phil, so I'm just going to shout them out. Brad W, thank you very much. Phil already said this, but I don't think we were live. Phil's launched a coup. Thank you very much for that super chat. Alec Barrett there as well. We've got you're on the television. Yippee! Yay, you're on the telly. Hi, Mum. And we've got Captain Bart Roberts. Labour social will not be the same without tech issues. Thank you very much for the super chat and the astute observation. And Johnny Copperhead said Sunak sounded very cultish. Damn autocorrect. I think with the tech issues, I think I've got to take a leaf out of Phil's book and just don't leave the house. Yeah. That's the trick. Just don't go anywhere. Burn my passport.
Outside gives you cancer, and we've got enough stress in the NHS.
True. But yeah, I mean, so the Tories have created this monster, which is, you know, life in the UK at the moment. And now their way of dealing with it is the worst possible way you could deal with it. People are stressed out, Phil. So I know, let's add some more stress to their lives.
They don't care. Ultimately, they're demonising people who largely don't vote, and when they do, they tend not to vote Conservative, in order to tell the people who might vote Conservative that your problems are caused by these other people. It's just standard Tory fare. It's just what they do. It's what Conservatives around the world do. It's what, you know, very far-right parties tend to do, is they just blame, you know, their own political ideas, their own economic ideas don't work. It's really that simple. They do not work. They do not work in the interests of society. They don't even work economically. They never produce the results that even they expect. They're always in a... Tories are when they're in government, are in a constant state of surprise. What do you mean our ideas didn't work? It must work.
I'm sorry to disagree. People. I think you're being very unfair. You're being very uncharitable to Liz Truss, whose economic policies were absolutely 100% sound. It's just that the woke blob mind virus wouldn't let her do them.
Yeah.
Have you got that video of her holding the book upside down?
Not to hand, no.
Oh, that's a shame.
But, I mean, it happened twice. She was on Fox News. For those who haven't seen it, it's worth watching it.
It didn't happen twice.
Fox News promoting her new book. So she's got 2 books out now, at least. Promoting her new book. She tried to hold it up and it was back to front. So then she tried to turn it around. It was upside down. So it was like... And it's like... And, you know, this is someone that... The right wing are they're trying to rehabilitate her career. I mean, she's already failed. She's not very popular in public, although now with the latest Ipsos polling this week, Rishi Sunak's even less popular. Like, he's now less he's the least popular prime minister, going back as far as Ipsos have been polling this, so going right back to Margaret Thatcher. He's the least popular prime minister.
And she was never this unpopular.
She like, I mean, he's just shaded her. He's now gone below. where she was.
You were saying Ipsos Murray, they're like Murray, sorry. They are like are they the gold standard when it comes to
along with YouGov,
polling?
they are the two that in terms of recent years have proven themselves.
Right.
And they've been doing it a very long time.
Because you have a problem with, is it Survation you're not too happy with?
No, Survation are not terrible, but they do tend to flatter Labour. So it's, particularly as a Labour supporter, it's very dodgy looking too much at Survation because it gives you too good. Now, granted, you could argue YouGov and now Ipsos. I mean, it looks like they are, but maybe they're clearly not. But I actually saw someone, because although Ipsos themselves have only been polling since 1978, polls have, they've been Gallup polling before then. So someone put up a list of the lowest personal approval ratings of all prime ministers going right back to Clement Attlee. And Rishi Sunak has still beaten them all in terms of plumbing new deaths. So there has not been a post-war prime minister ever seen approval ratings as... And this was specifically approval ratings, not net approval, because his approval rate has now gone down to like 10%. For Liz Truss, it was 11%. So he's now got the lowest approval rating.
Well, I think if Liz Truss had stayed on, her approval rating would have gone even further down. So she was rescued by the fact that she hid under a table. Penny Mordaunt went out. Remember that for PMQs? Yeah. And she said she's not hiding under the table. She actually said that out loud, and it was like a bizarre
thing to say.
She's definitely not hiding under the table. We didn't burn him. But yeah, the Tories, they've had a staggering week, even by Tory standards. So we had Liz Truss just making an absolute arse of herself. And then she was like humiliated at PMQs. I don't know if you saw this, but Starmer had a pop at Rishi Sunak's predecessor. Yeah. And Rishi Sunak broke out the emergency Corbyn. Yeah, and he's feeling very desperate. He's got his back against the wall where he goes, "Oh, but you supported the honourable member for Islington or something, North Islington," and it's like that's so pathetic.
Well, the thing is as well, it doesn't work, and it didn't work when Boris Johnson did it, and it can't work because Jeremy Corbyn is not the leader anymore, but also he's not even a Labour MP anymore. Like Liz Truss could come back, if Keir Starmer, and they should do this more, Labour. If they were to say that there's Rishi Sunak's party, they clearly have no regard for him, just like the public. And what they're trying to do, if they can win the election, is replace him with Boris Johnson again and make Liz Truss the Chancellor. Labour could do that. And do you know what? It'd be really hard because the Tory press wouldn't deny it because they quite like that idea. They'd love it. So he could push that. I don't know why he doesn't. If they can come up with like made up policies, why don't they? About Labour. Oh, Labour are planning this, Labour are planning that. Well, why don't they come up with a few that even the Tory press wouldn't actually deny because they'd quite like it?
Well, we're seeing this with Susan Hall, who's running for the Mayor of London, and she's on about half the numbers that Sadiq Khan is on. I mean, she's got
a bit more now. I think there's been latest polling that shows it'll be a bit tighter than that, but it's not going to be tight.
But she's banging on about this paper mile scheme that no one has proposed, that she's just literally made up.
Proposed it. Boris Johnson. So when they're talking about, there was all this work done on a feasibility study, it was Boris Johnson when he was mayor. The fact that it was still carrying on when Sadiq Khan was mayor, it was Boris. Just like ULEZ itself, this was actually a Conservative policy.
Yeah, it's maddening, isn't it? But yeah, and then so we had Liz Truss, we had PMQs, just a debacle, and then yesterday, 3 scandals in quick succession. Within 24 hours, we had the Tory donor who's got £14 million of his assets frozen. Yeah. We got the Tory councillor who has been accused by 5 women of abuse, and we've got this crazy story about Mark Menzies MP, who called up a pensioner from a flat at 3 o'clock in the morning, demanding that she give him literally thousands of pounds to bail him out of a situation. Yeah. So, do we know anything more on this? Have we had any more? Is it just off the Times report? Or have we
it's just off the Times report so far. Obviously, I mean, as soon as that Times report, I've never seen this happen so quickly, and at late at night, the whip was removed from him. And as I say, that proves that the Tories know that this is serious and that the allegations are credible, because they didn't even remove the whip from Peter Bone until he'd been found guilty of waving his willy in people's faces. And even then, it was the next day. Oh, should we remove the whip? Yeah, probably. Should we do it now? No, let's wait till tomorrow.
Bone, Pincher, and Willie Rag.
William Ragg had to remove the whip from himself. Like, Sunak never removed the whip from him.
Nominative determinism. Except when it comes to James Cleverly of Braintree.
Yeah, he was just a cruel joke. Nature's cruelest joke.
Brad, thank you very much for the super chat, Brad W. The only thing higher than Labour's poll lead is Michael Gove mid-rave. Yeah, you don't want that in the middle of your rave, do you, Phil? Like, well, Michael Gove turns up with a glow stick.
I mean, the Tories, like, the thing they've been worried about for so long, even when they shouldn't have been worried about it, they now have every right to be worried about it. It's not Labour's polling, it's Reform UK's. Because Labour's polling has basically been static for about a year and a half now. It's been at round about 44, 45%, round about there. It hasn't really moved much. It goes up and down a little bit, but it's essentially there. But the Conservatives' rating has fallen, and that is because Reform UK's has increased. And it's like, and also it's accelerated a little bit in 2024. So you've got to look at the situation for those who think that the polls will narrow. The Conservatives have rammed CCHQ full. Isaac Leverdow has been in day-to-day charge of campaigning since the 1st of January. So they've been in full campaign mode. They've been buying up loads of social media advertising. It's actually quite funny. I was told on the video I did on my own channel, calling out Susan Hall's lies. Someone said they saw a Susan Hall promotional video. So actually, I've been told that I've got Rishi Sunak and Susan Hall popping up on my channel. So they're buying loads of social media advertising. And it's vaguely hilarious when they do it on a video where I'm calling them out. And it's so they've been in full campaign mode, and yet the gradient of increase of support for Reform UK has increased. So, and it's what I keep saying, the nature of their campaigning is playing into Reform UK's hands because they're doing it all wrong.
So I mean that was up till yesterday evening, and then there was the episode of Question Time. I've only seen a couple of highlights. Have you seen any of the bits?
Not seen any of it yet. It's far too much for me to keep up with at the moment.
So David T.C. Davis, not to be confused with David Davis, Swiss Tony of the Brexit negotiations. He made
this would be the Welsh secretary, is it?
Yeah, he made an absolute arse of himself, and then consequently, I think it was Richard Tice or one of those, saying, how the audience are all a bunch of lefties and they're all a bunch of plants. Why don't they love me?
Where did it take place?
I don't know. We can ask in the chat. Tell us in the chat.
The Welsh secretary was somewhere in Wales, wouldn't it? At which point it might be a largely Labour audience because it's supposed to be reflective of the way people voted there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it'll represent other parties as well.
Puninator, £5 super chat. Thank you very much, Pun. Boris as PM, Truss as Chancellor, Braverman as Deputy and Ethics Advisor, Anderson as Equalities Minister, Ragg as Head Photographer. Any others? All no. It was in Buxton, apparently, not Wales. Buxton, as in the mineral water.
Yeah.
Bad Enoch as Head of MI5. And something that Jez has just pointed out, the Tories still not saying anything about reform. And you're
They're
right.
not attacking them at all.
Yeah. But in the same thing, Labour are not saying anything about Brexit. And we've just had a proposal by the EU for young people to be able to move more freely around the continent and work around our continent. And Labour, I don't think have responded to it. I've not seen any.
They'll absolutely go for it. The report I saw was saying they're a little bit
I thought.
Because it's freedom of. It sounds a bit like freedom of movement. But two things. First of all, so Labour, and they've said, Keir Starmer has said this openly since 2020. He does not want the next general election to be about Brexit. So they don't want to talk about it at all for that reason. Because
don't mention the Brexit.
if you talk about the economy, everyone accepts it's buggered, right? Not everyone agrees about what you should do with it, but everyone accepts it's buggered, and the Conservatives are in government. If you talk about healthcare, everyone agrees it's buggered. Education, whatever you do, whatever the normal policy areas are, everyone all agrees it's in a mess. If you talk about Brexit, it's not the same. So remember, what Labour want to do is not... obviously, they want to get as many people to vote for them as possible, like any political party. But they specifically want as many people as possible who will not vote Labour and will not support Labour, but cannot support the current Conservative government. They just want to sort of say to them, we're not going to be that bad. Just stay at home, have a cup of tea on election day. That's essentially what they're doing. They're trying to be as inoffensive as possible. However, Labour do have a specific policy of wanting to create limited and specific, to coin a phrase, forms of mobility. You know, they've talked about, for example, performers. This is just the same thing, but for a different group of people. So, and also Labour's attitude is they want to move as close as they can to the EU without involving the public. So what they don't want is to force the public to have to get involved in these divisive arguments again, which they would have to do for something like rejoining the EU or even the single market. But they don't have to do for anything else. They don't need a mandate for anything else.
Yeah, so what about regulatory alignment?
They don't need. They don't. I mean, that's a policy of theirs anyway. Whether it goes, I suspect it won't go in the manifesto. They don't need that. I mean, consider the Conservatives have signed us up to the CPTPP. Zero public mandate. It wasn't in the manifesto. There was obviously no referendum for it. So that's fine. We can do things like that. At the end of the day, regulatory policies are never in the manifestos anyway. They're really boring. So that's what Labour wants to do. They want to do the boring stuff. Regulations is boring. Obviously, what Labour are not going to do is dynamic regulatory alignment, which is where they basically say, look, we're just going to adopt anything the EU adopts, because that would be politically dangerous. So what Labour have said is anything that's in our interests, we're going to align on. So that just gives them free rein to do whatever they like. So, they don't need a specific mandate for regulations, because that just goes in. As long as you're not doing anything that goes against something you said in the manifesto. All Labour need to do is not screw over voters, not let voters have in mind something they think they're going to do and then do the opposite. At the same time, Labour are pushing the idea of solving various problems. People ultimately don't care how problems are solved, as long as they're solved.
As long as they're solved, exactly. So just to talk a little bit about, so we've had all this stuff this week with the Tories, like the opinion polls and the the scandals and everything else that's going on, and yet the newspapers, especially like the Mail and the Express and the Murdoch rags, have been absolutely obsessed with Angela Rayner. Leading to the most weirdest exchange earlier this week on one of the BBC politics shows. I think it was BBC. Oh, no, it was Sky. It was Sky, I think. When the T-file-headed weirdo who has reported Angela Rayner to the
James
police
Daly
wouldn't explain what he'd reported her for.
Multiple times.
And just, so, I mean... Is it that bad that if he says it out loud and it's not true, then he could be sued? I mean, what is it that he's...
It doesn't think she's broken the law. It's purely political, this.
Well, why is the Times reporting that there were 12 police officers from Greater Manchester Police looking into this?
This will cost over £500,000, this. Because if the last investigation, the Beergate one from 2 years ago, cost, correct me if I'm wrong, about £350,000, and that was like six detectives working on it for like a couple of months. So something like this, it will be talking like £500,000, and also like they don't want us to know what it is, because the other thing I suspect is it'll just sound stupidly petty, because ultimately this has got nothing to do with the house sale anymore. Because they know that's not police.
No, it's the electoral register now, isn't it?
They're trying to claim that she gave false information to the council, and which is utterly ridiculous, because I mean, why? What would the
I don't understand this at all.
Motivation be for her to do that?
Yeah. When I was traveling, my political address was at my mum and dad's in Liverpool. Like it just stayed there because, and when I was away, my mum would do a proxy vote for me based on that. I wasn't living there.
Yeah.
I was traveling. I didn't have a fixed abode in the UK, but that was somewhere where my bank statements went to. Of course, that's I can't understand how
there will be 100% nothing wrong. The police will conclude that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, but how that's the accusation? Why is it going to cost so much money and have so many detectives looking at it when the answer is no? Everyone does that. It's fine.
Or at the end of the day, all that needs to happen is they've obviously got council records for where she'd said she was living whenever the council sent out electoral roll information. And also they'll have from other documentation where she was actually living, because like her bank, for example, they could go to her bank and say, well, what was her address at these times? Like whatever they wanted, or a driving license. I don't know if she's got a driving license, but if she has a driving license. So, it doesn't take 12 detectives to get all these bits of information together at all.
The hypocrisy on this is off the scale, obviously, because you've got Rishi Sunak, whose wife, when living at number 11 Downing Street, I mean, not even like somewhere, in the middle of the countryside, I don't know, in a little tiny pile. No, literally in the heart of the city of London, 11 Downing Street. And she was claiming that she didn't live in the UK. Lord Ashcroft, who has avoided £112 million worth of tax over the years by claiming he doesn't live in the country of which he is a part of the legislature.
Or he was, He's no longer a member of the House of Lords. But he gets really upset when you say that. Oh, I left the Lords, but he still calls himself Lord Ashcroft. So he wanted the title,
but none of the responsibilities.
Yeah. So he still uses the title, and then gets mad when you accuse him of being a lord. What do you mean, I'm a lord? I'm not a lord. I left the Lords. You still use the word Lord Ashcroft in everything.
Everything.
Even his Twitter handle is Lord Ashcroft.
We've had a couple of super chats just come in. Thank you very much to John Hart. Adam Bolton, formerly of Sky, believes Sunak will have to call a general election this summer. Is this really credible or false hope? I do want to actually talk about this. So, I will come on to that next, John. And then Michael Warner, £2 super chat. Thank you. Police for innocent lady, not kidnapped Tory MP. But as someone pointed out, she's going to be found guilty of being ginger in a built-up area. I'm sorry, I lost who actually left that comment. But can we talk about this, the election? Because the predictions are that the Tories are going to do really, really badly in the mayoral contests that are going on May the 2nd and also in the local elections. So badly that Rishi Sunak is going to be under loads of pressure to have a stand down, get a new Tory leader, our 6th Prime Minister in as many years. Or he can call a general election. How likely do you think it is, Phil? Are you going to take a punt on it?
I cannot say, because it's all down to the strategic thinking of people who have demonstrated themselves to be completely unstrategic. So from Rishi Sunak's point of view, we're told, and this was a surprise, this was certainly a surprise to me, so there's actually been India trade talks carrying on. Now, I thought these were going to have to stop with the Indian general elections, but the Indian government has sent a trade delegation over to London. They've been talking this week. So there's so Sunak is still very much going after that India trade deal. Now,
this is my theory. This is why I thought it wouldn't be in May.
So from his point of view, he does not want a summer election because he can't get all of his ducks in a line. I don't understand how he can at all, even if the election is next January. But he certainly can't get this deal even agreed in principle if he has to dissolve Parliament in a few weeks' time, before the India general election's even taken place. So
the Indian general election is taking place. I think it's already started, but it's a big process.
The campaign has just started, I think. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because they don't all have the election day on the same day.
Yeah,
It depends on what
right.
state you're in.
Yeah.
Obviously, with nearly 1 billion people
Indeed,
voting,
yes.
this is a
They can't
big
do it
process.
like we did.
No. Johnny, thank you very much for the super chat. It is obvious that the Tory scum are truly terrified of Angela Rayner, in charge of wasting police time.
They
I
certainly
think
should be. If they don't have anything, they absolutely should.
Daily.
But
the hills have eyes.
Yeah. So from Sunak's point of view, I can completely believe he now wants the election delaying into autumn at least. I get that. The question is, what about Tory MPs? It's not really. There's not, it's like, I mean, it's not in their interest. The Reform UK are just getting stronger. If these local election results are worse than expected, I'll tell you the problem is, over the last couple of years, I've sort of known what Tory expectations were. I don't know what their expectations are, but I think it is the mayoral elections that are more important. I think they sort of know they're going to lose the London one, so I suppose it's the scale of the loss there. But if they lose, so of the 10 mayoral seats being contested in less than 2 weeks, there's going to be only 2 of them are currently held by Tories. There are actually about half of them they're just new. But 2 of them are currently held by Tories, Andy Street and Ben Houchen, or I don't know how you pronounce it. I wish people wouldn't have awkward names. But if they lose both of those, then that is surely disaster area. That's got to be worse than what I think they're pricing in the fact the local election results are going to be a right pile. Can they hang on to their mayors?
They're writing on the wall for Ben Houchen and Andy Street as they're on the way out.
Yeah, but... I mean, that's what is suggested. Now, the strange thing is, Andy Street they're both actually quite popular in their region, all things considered. They've both tried to distance themselves from Sunak. I think that's harder for in Tees Valley because they've had to tie themselves so closely to the government to protect the Teesside Freeport. To basically cover up the scandal. That's why they nobbled that investigation. Yeah. Whereas Andy Street should have an easier job because he hasn't had to tie himself to the government. At the same time, the swing required to replace him is much smaller. Like when Houchen won the seat last time, he absolutely beasted it. Labour were nowhere. They were really nowhere. So the swing required there. But if they both lose, then that will be a disaster. But it still comes to a perception. It doesn't matter whether Tory MPs want to replace Sunak or want him to stand down or not. Does Sunak believe they will ask if he refuses, or act if he refuses? If he thinks they will, he'll have to call the election. I've seen some reports today saying Oliver Dowden's pushing very hard for an election. He reckons Sunak should call an election. I'm not sure if anyone actually listens to Oliver Dowden.
No, but he just wants out, doesn't he? I think they just want a bit of a rest.
I think some of them do.
Don't they look tired? All of them.
Well, they haven't got any. I mean, what are they doing? They haven't got any ideas. Like he keeps saying, "Oh, I've got all this stuff I need to get done." What have you got to get done? Right? He's got like the Rwanda plan. He's now saying he's going to make Parliament just sit until it's done on Monday. Oh, I'm just going to make them sit. I'm sick of this now. They're just going to come in on Monday. We're just going to get it done. Well, what if the Lords say no? I mean, but from his point of view, he thinks he's just going to lock the doors and they're just going to keep voting until it's passed, right? So he's saying that it's definitely going to pass next week. So it's going to be in law next week. Well, what is there left to do then? What is there left to do? Why not call the election?
Yeah.
If he reckons, because he's got nothing else in the pipeline. No other major policies. He's got his smoking bill. Well, that's got one more. I mean, that, it could, for goodness sake, he could get that. He could ram that through next week if he wanted as well.
I was sent a list today. I don't know if you got this as well, Phil. It was the scandals of the Conservative Party. So this is the scandals just since 2020.
Oh yeah,
and there's some missing. But let's go through them quickly. Boris Johnson Mustique holiday scandal. Dominic Cummings COVID scandal when he went to Barnard Castle. Robert Jenrick cash for favours scandal. The Priti Patel bullying scandal where we paid the civil servant that she bullied out of our taxes. The Conservative HQ party scandal. The Boris Johnson treehouse scandal. The Richard Sharp loan scandal. David Cameron
missed out the Owen Paterson, which is a massive one.
Yeah, Green Sill. Tony Donor Pandora Papers scandal. Imran Khan, Ahmed Khan, sexual assault scandal. Boris Johnson, Sultan of Brunei hamper scandal. That means some of these are forgotten. Matt Hancock and Gina Cola Diageo scandal. Owen Paterson lobbying scandal. That was 2021. Partygate. Evangeline Lebedev peerage scandal. Rob Roberts sexual assault scandal. Michelle Moan PPE scandal. 2022. Boris Johnson wallpaper gate, Suella Braverman email scandal, Rishi Sunak stroke Ashata Murty has his wife, non-dom status scandal, Neil Parish tractor porn scandal, Gavin Williamson bullying scandal, Chris Pincher scandal, David Warburton sexual harassment scandal, Truss stroke Kwarteng mini budget scandal.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That was 2022. So we're only halfway through, guys. This is the 2023. And Nadine Zahawi tax affair scandal, Julian Knight sexual assault scandal, Dominic Raab bullying scandal, Steve Bryan lobbying scandal, Rack concrete school scandal, Rishi Sunak childcare firm shares scandal, Andrew Bridgen anti-vax scandal, Peter Bone bullying and sexual misconduct scandal, Crispin Blunt sexual assault scandal, Boris Johnson resignation honours scandal, and then just this year, we've had Scott Benton, it's his gambling, lobbying scandal. Simon Blagden, the post office scandal in general. Lee Anderson, racism and Islamophobia scandal. Frank Hester, racism scandal. Big Tory donor. Westminster honey trap scandal and William Ragg. Mark Menzies, MP campaign money scandal. Then the scandal of the Tory donor, who's now... had £40 million worth of assets frozen, and also the what's his name, Nunn, Christopher Nunn, the scandal about his.
There are, as you say, lots missed out there.
My God,
just like I don't think you mentioned them trying to starve kids in 2020. Mark Rashford had to come to the rescue.
Yes. The Mark Rashford scandal.
But the scandal, what created the scandal there was like it does my head in when these conservatives go, "Oh, Boris Johnson had his finger on the pulse." He never had his finger on the pulse. How he didn't realise that even some like very inexperienced Tory MPs realised that this policy was going to be bad for them.
Yeah,
and he went ahead with it anyway, and then had to U-turn. Like an actual prime minister with their finger on the pulse does not, on a regular basis, have to U-turn because of a public backlash.
No.
You might get one thing wrong.
So many of them.
Yeah.
Do you think though this is Boris Johnson's policy, wasn't it, that you flood the zone, you
did
cause
say
so
that.
many problems that people can't focus on one of them?
But
I
don't think so. I don't think this is deliberate because it's caused them problems. This is just, it's their nature. They, if you look at any individual scandal, you can't rule out that it could happen to someone in another party. I mean, for example, I was just talking the other day about the fact that this SNP investigation is dragging on. Now someone's been charged, Nicola Sturgeon's husband. So, sometimes things like this will happen in another political party. But there's so many in the Conservative Party, and I think ultimately it's because for other political parties, their core belief is that what they're doing for the majority, in the interest of the majority. Whereas the Conservative Party is the party of the self. It's all about what's good for you, not anyone else, not you as part of a collective, you as an individual. And it encourages people to feel that it is acceptable to be greedy and to get as much as you can. And if you get more than you should, it's actually everyone else's fault for being too weak and allowing you to.
Yeah. Why are you doing these things? Because you let us.
Yeah.
We're being told that our sound is very low, but my suggestion that we just turn up the volume hasn't gone down well. PPE scandal on the list. Ivan. I mean, the VIP lane, just in general, that wasn't on the list. Also, what wasn't on the list is there was something else that someone else put in.
Have we even got the shit in the rivers there?
No.
Have we got the
No.
sewage?
Oh, where Sunak breaking the law over his safety belt.
And Boris Johnson getting away with it.
Yeah.
He was also videoed driving without a seatbelt. Driving without a seatbelt, not even in the back. And he completely got away with it. Because the police said, oh, we don't know where he was. He was on the road. Doesn't matter which police force, needs to deal with it.
31 Blaze makes a good point. With 18 MPs now in Parliament without a whip, all parties need to be better at selecting candidates.
Well, I'll tell you what was interesting about that. Someone pointed this out yesterday. If you were to get collectively the Tory MPs who've lost the whip due to various acts of naughtiness, they would actually be the fourth largest party in Parliament.
Yes.
If they got together, they would be the fourth largest party in Parliament.
First past the post.
The naughty Tories. The naughty Tory party. It's actually, quite frankly, just the Tories who got found out.
Yeah.
Because remember, Mark Menzies didn't lose the whip 3 months ago when the Conservatives were told about the allegations. That's what did my head in about all those news headlines yesterday about Mark Menzies suspended because of these allegations. No, he wasn't. The allegations were made to the Conservative chief whip 3 months ago. They only removed the whip once he got found out. So ultimately, those people sat on the opposition benches there are the ones who got found out.
It's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? That we've been run by such. I mean, it's not just that they're criminal; it's the incompetence that gets me, Phil.
But they get away with it. They're bolstered by the media. If we had a functional media, we would never. Yeah. I don't know why. Like there needs to be
a functional media regulator rather than Ofcom. And who regulates the newspapers? Oh, it's the newspapers. Yeah. Great, what a great system.
Yeah, there's basically no regulation.
Self-policing.
Yeah.
For a fraternity of people who are the type of people who hack the phones of dead school children, the kind of people who hounded a princess of the United Kingdom to death.
Yes.
There's the same people. It's not like this, and they're the people going, oh no, we should police ourselves. Unique amongst all British industries. We should just, set our own regulations. And if we muck up, we should just say, oh, sorry, on page 27 in a tiny little, section of the page 3 weeks later, 3 years later.
It's like they do untold damage. Someone was tweeting Dan Hodges this week, because he's obviously been, just like he pushed the Beergate thing a couple of weeks ago, he's been pushing this Angela Rayner thing very heavily. And someone said, if she's, he says, if you're wrong, will you resign? And he said no. Then someone asked him, okay, well, let's be fair here. If it turns out she's done nothing wrong, will you apologise? And he said no. Bold as brass, just said no, we'll apologise. So it's like, it's a frank admission that he doesn't even care about getting facts right. Like, if I made, in all good faith, a false accusation against someone, and it turned out to be false, I would have, the very least I could do is apologise. Of course I would say I would apologise. I cannot get over, we have a society where someone prominent in the mainstream media can actually say, I'm publishing all this stuff and I'm pushing it really hard, and if it turns out I'm wrong, I will have nothing to apologise for. If it turns out I've misinformed the public, however innocently, I will have nothing to apologise for. That's the situation we have. And so, people should focus more on the media rather than the behaviour. The behaviour of politicians would not be the behaviour of politicians if we had a media that was actually calling truth to power.
If the media didn't let them get away with it. But like when GB News is found to have violated Ofcom regulations on 12 separate occasions and nothing is done. No. I mean, imagine you had a kid in school who was like always in trouble and was brought to the headmaster's office 12 times and there was literally nothing done. Not even a lunchtime detention. It was just, you've been told off now. They didn't even tell him off. It's been pointed out 12 times, little Johnny, that you've been naughty.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. And it's like, if you A rule that's not enforced is not a rule at all, because it's just honest people will follow it, and that's again the Tory way. That is why, at the start of the pandemic, Boris Johnson, he didn't want, the week before the lockdown, what did he do? He told people, can you not go out this weekend? Just don't go out. Because he wanted the vast majority of people, ordinary people, to self-regulate, so that he and his posh mates could carry on. Because in his mind, he's thinking, well, if only the elite went out, we're too small in number to spread a virus around. So if the plebs just stayed home, it'd all be fine. And then it's well, they didn't do it. I asked them to do it. They didn't do it. And that's their entire attitude. It's like, they see themselves as being above the law or special.
Yeah. But do you know how much Ofcom gets off the taxpayer each year?
No.
£131 million.
We'll give them £500 million and make them do their job properly.
Well, they got a further 55.1 million last year to incorporate proprietary work for our online safety duty and costs of the enhanced telecom security bill. £131 million of taxpayers' money for an institution, a Quango, that literally does. You're right. If they don't enforce the rules, there's no point in having them.
No.
Which does sweet FA. Just drop into the chat for a moment. For not so much of a face palm moment, more of a face planet. We could be talking about anything there. Captain Bart Roberts. Trevor says MPs who lost the whip because of political reasons need to be considered separately if they lost it because of the scandals. Well, I think they should be forced to step down as MPs. Like, how can you have someone who is embroiled in a sexual abuse scandal in a position of power like an MP is, where you have vulnerable people in their constituency going to see them about problems?
So, yeah, it is difficult because obviously then you wouldn't want politically motivated accusations. No. But at the same time, there has to be a duty of care to people, and MPs have access to people. Yeah. Whereas in actual fact, MPs have greater protections when it comes to anonymity when there are charges than ordinary people.
Yeah.
When actually that shouldn't be the case. I get that they're public figures and they could be subject to malicious accusations, but you have to have a duty of care to. I mean, imagine a scenario where something was known about an MP and no one said anything, and then they actually did do something.
Yeah. I've just turned my mic down a little bit, so hopefully I'm not quite booming out so much. And now Phil is louder than Graham. Everyone's saying Graham's louder than Phil. Now Phil, you're louder than me.
Yeah. My microphone for some reason kept turning itself down. I don't know why.
It does that. That's Google Meet and sometimes Zoom. I've noticed this. They've got like an auto change the volume, and it drives me mad because I'm like, I don't want you to automatically change the volume. But it's you both sound great now, says Jess. Should we sing?
No, that will ruin it all completely.
But apparently we sound great. Yeah. So what else has been in the news? Taylor Swift's new album's dropped last night. I haven't listened to it yet.
No.
But I'll report back. I've not had the internet bandwidth to even listen to the new Taylor Swift album. We're.
I mean, the Tories have decided at the last minute again to delay their standards checks. I knew it was going to happen anyway. It's no surprise to me. I basically did a video on it before they announced it.
So this is the standards. This is the imports.
We're supposed to be having. So the idea was that we were going to get our standards control coming in 3 phases. The first, they've been delayed a long time, but it was supposed to be January 2024. We have health certificates required, but no one's checking anything. Then at the end of this month, it was supposed to be phase 2, which would be checks on certain goods, and then like in autumn it was going to be checks on everything, and there's no checks coming at the end of this month. And I said at the time there wouldn't be, because we haven't got the capacity to do it. It's really simple. It's years since we left the EU, and they still can't implement Brexit. We still haven't even got customs controls in place properly. Like in theory we do, and occasionally there are checks, but there are very few checks because they prioritise traffic flow. But as soon as the only way I could believe that these checks were coming at the end of this month was if we had a May 2nd election, because then it'd be like checks come in basically just before midnight on April the 30th, and then the election's a couple of days later. Well, there's no news on it because of Purdah, so then it's Labour's problem. I get that, but as soon as there was not going to be a general election on May the 2nd, it was like, yes, we're not going to get these checks, are we? Because the last thing Sunak wants is headlines about more food shortages.
Yeah.
And Theresa Coffey telling us to use turnips instead.
Yeah. We're being asked for some good news because obviously Tay-Tay's new album isn't cutting it for some people. Yeah, well, the number of MPs who said they're going to leave Parliament in the next election has now reached 100. Most, 63 of them are Tories, including the former Prime Minister Theresa May. Other big names that are going are Sir Alex Sharma, and also Labour leaders Dame Margaret Beckett and Harriet Harman. And there's also 7 MPs who now sit as independents. We just talking about people losing their whip. Or sorry, the MPs losing their whip. Yeah, there is a difference between ones that lose their whip because they don't vote with the government, like what happened to a bunch of normal Conservatives. I say normal for conservatism back in 2019.
Again. Absolute bastard.
What?
The microphone keeps turning itself down. Not my fault.
But yeah, 7 independents, 63 Conservatives, 17 Labour MPs, 9 SNP MPs, 2 Sinn Féin, who don't even go into Parliament, but they do look after the constituencies, so that's nice. 1 Plaid Cymru candidate and a Green candidate. Oh yeah, the Green candidate. 100% of the Green MPs are stepping down. That's Caroline Lucas. So it's just, I mean, and it's a hell of a churn as well because a lot of these Tory MPs who are stepping down only got their seat in 2019.
Yeah, I know it's. I mean, it's a very horrible atmosphere for anyone who genuinely wants to do anything. But at the same time, with the Tories ones, there will be some who've had their time, but some of them are just going because they don't. They can't be asked with the election campaign and then being told to sling the rock at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. In 1997, 71 Conservatives stood down. And that's when the Tories...
You will always get a higher number standing down when they think they're on for a beating. Because, like, particularly when you've been on the government benches, you don't really fancy, particularly if it's going to be an extended period in opposition.
Yeah. Someone's saying bad people are turning your mic down.
They are.
Give someone a call.
Well, I'm actually going to Google headquarters this June, so I might tell them.
Are you?
Sort it out.
Tell them, and ask them for $5,000 and say you've got to be rescued from the bad people.
Yeah, they're not.
So I made a joke yesterday about the bad people being the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
And the MP saying rescue me from these bad people. I guarantee that's going to be the front cover of the Private Eye next week. I put money on it. So just to circle back to the general election, which we've got to talk about things to look forward to. I'm looking forward to the end of the Conservative Party, which could actually happen.
It could happen
in this election.
Well, it couldn't happen in this election, but it could. Like if they are beaten down to literally just a few dozen seats, and they're not even the official opposition.
Yes.
That could be the beginning of the end for them. It will take time to actually obliterate them, but that could be the beginning of the end. We would need the Liberal Democrats to take over.
Yes.
As they'd have to be seen by, so they'd have to up their game as leaders of the opposition.
Yep.
But
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that at all. I don't mind the SNP being the official opposition.
Well, no, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm going to have to.
It would be a bit weird. But I'd rather have them than the Tories.
Because
I'd rather have anyone.
Oh yeah, I absolutely. But nonetheless, it would make more sense if it was the Lib Dems.
My take on the whole when's the election going to be, as you know, for the whole time we've been doing the agenda, pretty much I've said he's waiting until he gets this a trade agreement through with India before he goes ahead with it. I don't think he gives a stuff about the polls or about the internal machinations of the Tory party. I don't think he really cares. I think he just wants his money.
The thing is, I still don't understand, and I'm not an expert on these things, I still don't understand how it works. Even if he gets the agreement in principle and the shares go up, as soon as Labour say, which could be that very afternoon, because the latest suggestion from the Indian government is they want an exemption from the carbon tax, the carbon border mechanism. And it's like, so Labour will surely have to say no to that. So if they say no on the same afternoon, don't those shares go straight back down again?
Well, maybe, but maybe he'll have sold them all by then. I don't know. I don't know. I think the agreement in principle will be enough to put his shares up. And don't forget, I mean, they have such. I mean, it's only a small percentage of the shares of Infosys, but it's a lot of money. I mean, it's £700 million, and so you don't need the shares price to go up that much for them to make an absolute killing.
I get
over
that if they can
£100 million in an afternoon.
I just think that's if within an hour of the thing being announced, Labour say, yeah, we're not gonna honour this aspect of it. I just because he can't. I don't know enough, but I don't think he can actually ram it through and have it signed, sealed before the election. I don't think he can get it ratified in time.
Yeah.
And if he can't, then he doesn't bind Labour's hands in the slightest.
No, I don't think he cares about getting it ratified. I think it's just going to be an agreement in principle, a memorandum of understanding. That's all he needs. He just needs the share price of Infosys to go up a little bit, and then
we'll see.
Very
even that could be tricky. I mean, again, it depends.
Richer man.
Can he persuade India to drop their visa requirements in exchange for this exemption? But then, why would the India government even agree to that if they know that because they've been talking to Labour. So if they know Labour are going to go, no, you're not going to an exemption. Why would we screw over our own businesses? Why would our first act in government, when we'd like to stay government for quite a long time, be to screw over British manufacturers?
I think that would be getting into details. I think Lord Cameron will just get a thing saying, you want a trade deal, we want a trade deal, let's sign something saying that we both want a trade deal. You've seen what they do when we get the governor of Tennessee to say, we'll have a trade deal with the UK, and then suddenly on the front cover of the Daily Mail the next day, it's the GDP of Tennessee. That's how much that trade deal that's never going to happen is worth, because you can't have an individual trade deal with an individual state. That would be crazy.
But that's not enough for them. They need the actual trade deal agreement.
What, before the
election,
the share price goes up?
They need an agreement to be announced.
Yeah, but agreement that we will have a trade deal.
No, because they've already got that. They've already got that. They're both working on it. The Indian delegation, they could be lying, of course, have said, "Oh, it's actually really close. We just got to agree a few things." So they're constantly. Obviously, they're just trying to put Rishi Sunak under pressure.
Yeah, apparently you've gone quiet again. I'm glad someone else is having tech problems, not just me.
Bastard thing.
Honestly, I think it's Google Meet. I think Google Meet actually turns volume down.
I'm not doing it. It shouldn't have access to my microphone like that.
I know it shouldn't, but it does. Yeah. You wouldn't believe how many crazy things that can go wrong when you're just trying to stream live. I think we're just better doing it from our phones. It's so much easier. Microphone. Everyone's saying you've gone silent. I can still hear Phil. Can people hear Phil still?
Well, I've put it back up again now, but I mean, it's just unfortunate.
Probably just blasted everyone's ears there, Phil. Wow. Graham's dodgy Wi-Fi is. It's not my dodgy Wi-Fi.
No, it's my internet connection now. That's why it's working.
My internet at home's been very good for the last year. I think the Tories have shares in Google. There you go.
Well, they almost certainly do. They have shares in everything.
Rufus says I can hear him. So Rufus, thank you, Rufus. When Labour win, will DV get a #1 on sharing platforms? I don't think so.
No, can we have a new song? Or preferably no song at all. So we just have a boring government that just gets things done.
I remember when it was announced at 1 o'clock, it was quite early actually on the night of the 1997 election. It was quite early in the night when it came through that it was a landslide. It might have been when it couldn't have been when the polling stations closed, but it was pretty quick. And I remember the DJ played D-Ream.
Yeah.
Things Can Only Get Better, but only played like one verse and one chorus of it because it's not that good a song. And then played I Am the Resurrection by the Stone Roses instead, which is a much better song from back in the day. Oh, I've got an interesting little fact for you, Phil.
All right.
Little fact. So I was looking for something yesterday amongst all my old papers, and I came upon a bunch of documents from when I was in university at Manchester. And there was stuff there about me running for office at the student union, along with Johnny Reynolds, who's now the shadow business secretary, and these like flyers that I had made to give out saying vote for Johnny Reynolds and all this kind of stuff. And I had a list, and it was written goodies and baddies. And on the goodies list, it was all the people and what they're standing for in the student union.
Right.
And Johnny Reynolds was standing for communications that year. And Seb Dance, the MEP, was standing for one of the positions. And I was like, I wrote to Johnny and said, did we go to uni with Seb Dance? He's like, yeah. And that's really weird because I've spoken to Seb Dance because he was a MEP. He was very anti-Brexit.
He's the one who called out Brexit Nigel Farage with the sign. He's lying to you.
Yes, he's lying to you. He's the guy who held that sign. And I had like a conversation with him. I've had conversations since. I saw him at the Fabian conference last year. And we were talking about London's bus station. He's now the deputy mayor for transportation in London. And had no idea that we used to campaign together in university. That's how long ago it was. There you go. Fun little side note. Phil went to Manchester University as well.
I didn't get involved.
You left in 97, didn't you?
98. I graduated in 97, but I stayed there for another year to do my teacher training.
Oh, okay. So we were there in that. We were both there in 97. Yes. I arrived in the whole middle of Gunchester, and I think that the hacienda closed for the second and final time. The summer before, it was like
I had free entry to the hacienda because I put up a poster for them in my, because I had it was an offer, so I put up a poster for them in my flat window, and I got on the list to get in.
I never got to go, although I did go to the recreation of the hacienda that was made for the Michael Winterbottom film. Michael Winterbottom, 24-Hour Party People. They recreated it in a warehouse in Ancoats, and me and a couple of mates managed to get because they needed the crowd. They needed people there. So I'm an extra somewhere.
Whereas my abiding memory from time, it'll just be before you went. I was saying that it was when the IRA bombed the Arndale Centre, and I was really miffed. I was really miffed because they'd got the W.H. Smith just how I liked it, and they took out all of the ground floor, and it had the W.H. Smith. They'd finally had it set up so it made sense. The big games workshop that went. All we had was the pokey little ones left. There was a really good butcher's there. Gone. I was not happy. Not happy.
Yeah. So that would have been 96.
And then a couple of years later, we had the peace process anyway, because you'd not have just waited.
Yeah.
Didn't need to take out my W.H. Smith.
I don't know. So, Puddinator saying, new song for election results. I can clearly see the Tories are gone. I can see clearly now the Tories have gone. I don't know if that scans quite well. It's Jimmy Cliff there, I think. And Colin Baker saying, in 1997, the exit polls did predict a Labour landslide, so we knew at 10 o'clock. Okay, fair enough.
I mean, there was
earlier in the night than I remember.
Well, that was in terms of like when we'd have confidence of it, but you need a load of seats, like bellwether seats, to flip before you can really.
I'm pretty sure it was after midnight.
Yeah, in terms of when you can actually say it confidently, because you need some seats, some like indicator seats to actually go before you. But then you always, there are a lot of places that can do the counting in a few hours. And then there's still a load to be done. There was still probably some to be done when Tony Blair was becoming Prime Minister. But obviously he would have had enough. As soon as he's got enough, you can sort out the palace. You don't need to wait for everyone.
Like the same lines are being trotted out by the Tories. You can put like the clips side by side of people in 1997 saying, Tories saying, "Oh, there's no enthusiasm for for Tony Blair or for Labour. There's no one's enthusiastic about it, and then now you're having the same line about.
It's more believable these days, but it is exactly the same lines. They haven't even got themselves any new lines.
But do you think, we're going to have to round up in a minute, but do you think that the Tories are scared of Angela Rayner, or they're just doing this because
I think they just think they've got something. Although it's, because we know they see working class people and women and possibly gingers, I don't know, as like inferior, then it's easy to say. Of course, they're going after a strong working class woman, but at the same time, I think they'd have done it whoever. They're just trying to find whatever they can. They're trying to sling as much mud as they can. Susan Hall's just trying to make up policies to attack Sadiq Khan with, because she can't actually attack what he's actually promising to do. The Tories in Westminster, it's the same thing. It's all the same thing. They're just trying to derail Labour. They can't understand why it's not working for them, because they're thick. They have no idea about politics. They don't understand anything. They can't work out why they're doing so badly. So they're just slinging mud. It's all they've got left. They can't do anything else. They can't. Some of them recognise they can't just attack Labour's policies, because it's like Rishi Sunak has this insistence on Labour have no plan, which is always a stupid line to go for, because even if it were true, come the election, there'll be a manifesto, at which point they'll go, well, what's that there? But that's the line he's still taking. Labour have no plan. So you look like a right prawn if you then say in the next sentence their plan's crap. Well, which is it? Is they got a crap plan or no plan?
I think your mic's gone down again, Phil.
Bloody has. It's gone down 3 things this time.
Right, we better go. I think that's being told here. Apparently Coldplay are shit. I can't disagree with that. Oasis are overrated. No, Oasis are shit. They're not overrated. Like no serious music journalist would go, oh my God, Oasis, they're the pinnacle of guitar music of the 20th century.
They are very popular though. Like my attitude is, in terms of great bands and stuff, there's lots of great bands I don't personally like, but I still call them great bands because it is a popularity contest with music.
Yeah, it is. It's pop music.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't think if someone says the Beatles are overrated, I get my back up, because I think actually you can't overrate the Beatles. They were very, 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 very good. Whereas Oasis, I don't think anyone rates them. The people like them, but they don't necessarily rate them. And Steve's saying, as a ginger, I fully support Angela Rayner. Gingers unite, although we're sorry about Hucknall. Well, I have to say, I think Mick Hucknall's joining our gang, isn't he?
Is he?
Phil, do you know about this?
I've no idea.
Are we not supposed to say this?
I don't know anything.
Okay.
I know nothing.
Just stop the Tories gang, which we're trying to get as many people on board as possible. So yeah, I've got to rein in my bitterness about.
I'm not sure I can think of a bad ginger. Has there ever been a bad ginger?
1995. Yeah.
I can't think of any.
There's been loads of bad gingers. Little Mermaid, she was bad. Oh, the Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, she was nice.
She wasn't bad. She was drawn that way.
Yeah. I actually can't think of any.
Peck. What's his name? The guy Peck from Ghostbusters. He was a ginger, and he also the same guy played
real person
news reporter out of Die Hard 1 and 2.
Fictional ones. Fictional characters. That doesn't work.
Bad gingers. I'm sure we'll think of one. Come on, Harry, there you go. Lisa said in the chat, Harry is a bad ginger. I like Harry.
Who's Harry?
Prince Harry. Yeah,
he's all right. I mean, he had a Nazi phase in his youth, but he's got over it.
He did dress up as a Nazi for some reason. Yeah. Nick and Diff says Mick Hucknall is decent on social media. Was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, Mick's one of us in more ways than one. And Set, the Egyptian snake god, he was a ginger, according to Jasmine.
Again, we might be veering into fictional characters again.
Winston Churchill, when he was younger, was a ginger.
Yeah,
when he was a kid. Yeah. And Elizabeth I, obviously famously, she was a ginger.
Yeah, but she was good. She was good.
Maybe, according to some accounts, Alexander the Great.
He was all right as well. I mean, okay, I know he conquered a lot of places, but for his time, he wasn't like a sadistic He wasn't like Vlad the Impaler or anything, wasn't he? He wasn't considered a cruel dictator.
Oh, well, what about the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden? He's a ginger, isn't he?
I suppose that's true. But I mean, he's more sort of just, I mean, he's not out and out evil, is he? He's just an idiot.
Johnny Rotten. He's turned into a...
He is, but he was I mean, he's just got a big mouth, hasn't he, really?
I don't think Alec Barrett, thank you very much for the super chat. Henry VIII was a bad ginger.
Oh, okay. If he was ginger, that's fair.
Kaiser
I
Wilhelm
agree.
was
Henry
ginger.
VIII was a bad one.
All Neanderthals were ginger, says Jez.
I don't think we have anything
Thor
against...
is ginger.
Enkidu was ginger, was it? I don't think we have any problem.
Your mic's gone down again.
No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. The lights are all on.
Tim was saying, fill your mic. Billy Bremner was a bad ginger.
Why would he do? He just did it. He did impressions.
No, that was Bremner.
Oh yes, yeah. I don't know who Billy Bremner.
Billy Bragg's a different person entirely.
Yeah, that's not Billy Bremner. I don't know.
William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror was a ginge.
Yeah, he wasn't very nice. He was a liar. He was a liar and a
right, we're going to have to wrap it
scoundrel.
up there, Phil.
Okay.
Mostly because Plumduff has quite rightly pointed out that this chat has turned into a ramble.
But I won't have anyone saying Elizabeth I was bad. I think, you know, she was actually a really good queen. Up against a lot of misogyny herself.
Kirsty McCall was a good ginger. That's true. Anyway, right, and also Karen Gillan. She's the best ginger. Anyway, so we're going to have to wrap it up there. I might be back tonight with the Labour Social. I don't know. It's going to depend on my internet connection. So I'm going to be running tests all afternoon instead of frolicking in the sun. Yeah, the crankies aren't ginger. What the hell is wrong with you?
And would they be in the good list or the bad list? I quite like the crankies. I saw the crankies live at Doncaster when I was a kid.
Oliver Cromwell, he was a bad ginge. He was. I'm not.
Yeah, Cromwell was wrong.
Cromwell.
I didn't know he was ginger though.
Yes, indeed.
Is he? I'm not sure he is. I'm gonna have to check that. I'm not sure he was.
William the Bastard. Genghis Khan. I don't think Genghis Khan
was certainly not ginger.
They're not a ginge. Hashtag not a ginge. Not all gingers. Billy Gingerbread. Anyway, right. So yeah, I'll hopefully be back at 9 o'clock tonight for the agenda. And Phil, are you going to be able to do a?
No, I'm not at the gym. I'm being mischievous tonight. So my fiance's eldest is bringing round her new boyfriend, who I am assured is not controlling and coercive. Has been recommended by her friends, and I'm going to. She's panicking. She thinks I'm going to give him a hard time, right? She thinks I already don't like him. I'm going to so I'm going to feed the paranoia by actually being an arse with him. So I'm going to have some fun.
That sounds like a top plan.
I'm going to have some fun making him squirm and seeing how I'm going to test. It's like an engineering term, test to destruction. I'm going to see how strong his personality is.
Well, I was going to ask about the Labour Vision, which you do on Sundays at 4 p.m. Are you doing one of them this weekend?
I probably will. I mean, at some point they'll stop because I think I've gone through a lot of the sort of more important policies, but I'm sure there'll be the odd one I'll check through and do.
I think
I was hoping we'd have an election campaign by now, and they would just naturally peter out.
Yeah. Well, you'd also have a manifesto to work from.
Yes, exactly. That would be nice.
Well. Yes, but yeah, I mean, doing something about about mobility around the EU, freedom of movement.
There is something around. There was some news about Labour fleshing out their security strategy when it comes to Brexit. Yes, which I may do.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll look out for that, and I'll be back. If I'm not back tonight at 9 o'clock, it's internet problems here in the Lakes, but I definitely will be back on Monday at 9:30 for Morning Brew. So hopefully see you there. Thanks very much for the chat and the super chats, and for putting up with our technical problems as they come along. I like the way we like fixing things live, and it's good that we got an audience, because otherwise we'd just be talking and we wouldn't know that things weren't working.
That would work too. But yeah.
So thank you very much for keeping us in the loop. So so I'll say goodbye, and then Phil has to stop the stream because
no power. See you later, everyone. Have a great evening.
Bye.